Welcome back to Crawford-Clark Close-Up and our Pixar season of reviews in the build-up to the release of one of this summer's most anticipated films, and Pixar's 20th, The Incredibles 2. During the season, we're reviewing each of Pixar's feature films from the beginning, from Toy Story to last year's Coco, before we review their latest offering when it gets its release this summer. Right now, we're at film number 11 of 20, and the third part of the hugely successful Pixar strand, Toy Story. Due for release back in the summer of 2010, Toy Story 3 would mark the first time that Pixar were making a third installment of one of their stories, and they chose wisely when deciding to give Toy Story the trilogy treatment. Fans had last seen the band of toys and their owner Andy over 10 years beforehand, back in 1999, so childhood fans back in the day, like this reviewer, would be adults now, anticipating what the toys have been up to in the last decade. Having directed the first two Toy Story adventures and spending his time now on the Cars films, John Lasseter handed the directorial reins over to longtime Pixar collaborator and editor Lee Unkrich, who hoped to recapture the magic of the first two installments not only for the original fans, but for Pixar newcomers. The result is one of Pixar's most accomplished and polished stories. After another ambitious opening, an elaborate Wild West-style chase with a train, which we eventually learn is one of Andy's childhood games with his toys, we're given a quick montage of Andy playing and gradually growing up with said toys. Randy Newman returns to scoring duties for the film, and the use of You've Got a Friend in Me is perfect, as the song is abruptly cut off on the ominous lyric, Our Friendship Will Never Die, echoing out onto the present day as we learn that 17-year-old Andy is preparing to leave for college. It's a stark reality both for the viewer and for Andy's toys, as we see the toys resorting to stealing Andy's mobile phone and ringing it from the toy trunk to see if Andy will realise they're still there and want to play with them again. With abandonment and replacement being such key themes of the preceding two films in the series, Toy Story 3 immediately ups the ante. The childlike sensitivity of Woody clutching the phone in the trunk and the urge to answer Andy when he speaks into his phone is a powerful opening that reminds us just how well realised these protagonists are and how faithful Woody is as a character. These are new times, and with the passing of years playing out almost in real time, Andy would only have been about 6 or 7 in Toy Story 2, and now 10 years on he's 17, a number of toys have now left the gang. Gone is Wheezy, introduced to us in the second film, as is stalwart Bo Peep, and the toy soldiers are seen making their departure in this film. We feel for these characters as they talk about friends they've lost along the way, and it makes us anxious that we could be losing more of these beloved toys before the end of this film. With the passing of time, even Buster the family dog is now old and overweight. When Woody tries to rescue the toys from the trash and calls out for Buster's assistance, he's not the sprightly pup from the second film anymore. It's attention to detail like this in the storytelling that further makes us feel like this world and its inhabitants are real every step of the way. With Andy's mum insistent that Andy decide what to do with all of his old toys, Andy's intention is to put them all in the attic, until they hear of Sunnyside Daycare, where they have the possibility of being played again by children after craving this for so many years from their owner, who has grown up and neglected them. As soon as we arrive at Sunnyside, it's clear that the animators had an enormous task on their hands, having to create a much wider range of characters for this film. There are literally hundreds of new toys that greet the gang at Sunnyside, and chief of these is Lotso Huggin' Bear, a plush teddy bear who we're quick to learn smells like strawberries and is a hugger. One of the standouts amongst the new voice cast for the film is the unexpected Michael Keaton as Ken. It's an unconventional but inspired choice for the character, and marks the second time Pixar have used Keaton's voice. Prior to this, he voiced one of Lightning McQueen's competitors in Cars, but he has a much meatier role this time around. Ned Beatty is wonderful as Lotso, injecting the character with a great dual personality, the darker side of which we'll see as the narrative progresses. Timothy Dalton even appears later in the film as new child Bonnie's hedgehog toy, Mr. Pricklepants, another great addition to the voice cast. Whilst the majority of the toys are impressed by Sunnyside and their welcome, Woody is not so convinced. Ever loyal to his owner, Woody decides to leave and bids farewell to the rest of the toys. These characters all feel so real and relatable, even down to Bullseye trying to follow Woody as he goes to leave. We soon learn that Woody had a lucky escape as he's found by Bonnie and she takes him home to meet her own toys whilst the rest of the gang discover that playtime with toddlers is an ordeal. When the toys decide they're going to ask Lotso if they can change rooms to play with the gentler kids who are old enough to play nicely with their toys, Lotso quickly turns and becomes a nightmare for the new recruits. What begins as a happy, welcoming home soon becomes a prison environment, and what follows in the toys trying to escape and Woody returning to try and rescue them is like Pixar meets The Great Escape. Toy Story 3 is a breeze from start to finish. Despite returning to the longer runtimes of films like The Incredibles or Cars, at an hour and 45 minutes, this is one of Pixar's longest features. The film never drags, and that's down to great characters, a brilliant, engaging story, and, a staple for the Toy Story films, wonderful humour. That being said, there's a lot of darkness in the latter half of the film. Pixar have proven in their previous two successes, WALL-E and Up, that they're not afraid of breaking new ground and emotional territory, and Toy Story is no exception. Lotso's story of abandonment from his previous owner is from the same mould as Jessie's from the second film, despite the fact that even though it's a beautifully animated sequence, it has less emotion at its heart due to the fact that we know now that Lotso is the villain of the film. Nevertheless, it's there to tug at our heartstrings. Pixar do this best, however, in a genuinely tense moment in the final act of the film, as the toys help Lotso as they fall into a garbage incinerator, only for Lotso to run off and leave the struggling gang as they fall towards the fire. Watching this even as a man in my mid-20s, I admit I cried for these toys, sure that this was the end, until the aliens from the first film come to the rescue in a euphoric, crowd-pleasing moment, arriving at just the right moment in the film. That the toys are all holding hands, together, accepting their fate, is a heartfelt echo of Andy's mum in Toy Story 2, that toys don't last forever. And we're right there with them, prepared to say goodbye to these characters, even if just for a fleeting moment. As with the best of Pixar, with Toy Story 3 there's plenty for the adults to enjoy and relate to, as well as the children. Whether it's the adult references in the toys' jokes, or in this case, it's the inevitability of growing up and knowing that playtime can't last forever. There's a sweet moment where Andy has emptied out his bedroom and his mum stares around the room and starts crying, which all parents can relate to when their children fly the nest. Our standout scene, however, has to be the very end of the film, as Andy relinquishes control of his toys to Bonnie, who he knows will be a kind owner and look after his childhood friends. If the ending doesn't floor you emotionally, with Andy talking about how faithful Woody is, and then departing for college, thanking his toys for all the memories, then nothing in the Pixar canon will. We began this trilogy in 1995. Toy Story was the studio's daring first feature film, with clouds in the sky on Andy's bedroom wallpaper. And now 15 years later, we've come full circle, as the camera closes in on a cloudy sky and we say farewell to the toys. Audiences in 2010 knew that this was the perfect way they could have ended the trilogy, and critics were in agreement, with Toy Story 3 surprising no one by once again bagging the Best Animation Oscar for the fourth time in a row for Pixar, and like Up before it, being nominated for Best Picture of the Year, and rightly so. The trilogy ended so satisfactorily that it's leaving fans puzzled as to why we're getting a fourth instalment in 2019. Time will tell, but fans have put their faith in Pixar from the beginning and they haven't let us down yet, so here's hoping for good things to come. Toy Story 3 is one of the strongest Pixar films in the canon. It's funny, it's sad, it's poignant, it's powerful, it's nostalgic, and it's impossible to pick one of the Toy Story films apart from the others and say this is the best. Suffice it to say that this is one of film's greatest trilogies. Toy Story 3 gets... Were you swept up by Toy Story 3 like us? If you saw it first time around in cinemas, what did you think? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and if you like this review, please subscribe to the channel. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Crawford-Clark Close-Up. You can also send us an email if you like, crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com. All the details are coming up shortly. As we entered the 2010s, Pixar would go into sequel mode, and coming up next, we return to the world of racing with Cars 2. Be sure to look out for our next review to hear our thoughts on Pixar's 12th feature film from 2011 as we edge closer to the release of The Incredibles 2 in just a few weeks' time. Thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.